On this episode of the Stocki Exchange, I talk with a public relation professional about the difference between PR and marketing, what's the best way for you to get your press release seen by more journalists, and we talk about wine. What would Dianna do with one bottle of a 1961 Grand Margaux? Sell it, share it, save it, or drink it. On this episode, hey everybody, welcome to this episode of the Stocki Exchange. Today I am here with Dianna Stampfler from Promote Michigan. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So Dianna is a PR professional, and we are going to talk about a little bit different than marketing, but what's the difference between marketing and public relations, why a good public relations person is worth their weight in gold, and then a few other questions. We're going to give away some books from one of Dianna's mentors, as we shall say. We're going to talk about that giveaway today. So we're going to get right into it. Give us, the listeners, the watchers, what's the big difference between public relations and marketing promotions?
Well, I guess if you ask anybody, you're going to get different answers no matter which way you go. But in my perspective, marketing is more statistics and, strategies and sales-oriented things. I always say I'm not in sales. I'm in PR, which is about having public relations with people, having relationships that you build, people that you can call on the phone, that know who you are, that you can sit down and have coffee with and build those relationships with. And so for me, I've always pushed that PR part of it. It's kind of like the bedside manner to the surgeon kind of thing. And I think they obviously play well together, and they're both very necessary in each other's worlds. But I just like the fact that in PR, a business can have multiple PR people on staff even though they don't have that title. If you go to a doctor's office, that receptionist is in PR if they give you good customer service and they treat you with respect. If you go to a bar or restaurant, that server, that bartender, they're in PR for that restaurant. And if in those business arenas, all of those employees love what they do, and they give good customer service and a positive impact to the customers that come through, they all become PR ambassadors for your company. And if they're that excited and they work that hard for you on site, imagine what they're like when they're out in their real world and talking about their business. So PR really is more encompassing and is not defined to one specific person in the company.
Yes, I think it's helping build and curate the perception of your brand.
The image, yeah, it's all
everyone
about
is
making
associated with that. You could have a PR person on staff and that person leads that fight, but everyone's a part of what you're doing, what services you're offering, and at the end of the day, most of the marketing and PR people, say marketing people, are usually behind the scenes.
Right. They're crunching numbers, they're playing with Excel. I hate Excel.
Yeah,
and
they're planning budgets and buying ads. They're not actually
exactly
the front-facing people which customers are actually talking to. So those people are super important to understand their value and help kind of curate that process.
I agree. And PR people, they like to be out in front of people. They want to help people. They want to make people feel good about what they're doing and what their experiences are. And I think that for me is kind of the biggest thing every day when I can go out and work with people and get them excited about what I'm excited about as well.
Perfect. So social media is obviously huge, and that's the ability to communicate and tell everyone how I feel, and people can just say whatever they want. They can leave reviews on TripAdvisor, Yelp, things like this. How has your profession, in terms of helping curate that perception, been impacted by people's ability to share a message to a very wide audience extremely quickly? And especially if they have a large following, they have a large backing, people really trust what they say, that can be impactful, both positive and negative, to a potential business. So how has social media really kind of changed how you help kind of frame perception of your clients?
Well, what's interesting is when I started working in PR back in 1991, we barely had email then. We didn't have websites. We didn't have any of these social medias. I barely had a cell phone at that point. So it's been really interesting to kind of watch the progression over the years and how that has changed. And with social media, what it has allowed on the PR side of things, as you said, is having the advantage to go right to a consumer. You don't necessarily need the media anymore because you can post stuff out there. Your following will kind of take that grassroots approach and market on your behalf if they believe in your brand or your product or your destination.
I just read a big article on that. the media themselves are becoming less of distribution channels because we don't need them anymore.
Right.
With social media, with websites, with the internet, with communication, I can go straight to the consumer and have a direct conversation with you through Twitter, through Facebook, through an advertisement. I don't need to like send it to the news to get put on so hopefully people see it. Now, there's still value in that.
Right.
But you also have much more control over your brand and your communication now instead of having to go through
Exactly.
a third party.
Well, and the thing too with a lot of those major media, it used to be when I started in the industry, the pinnacle was if you worked with somebody and you got a front page article on USA Today, or you got an article in Midwest Living or things like that, that was the pinnacle. And that still is important, but people, go out there and say, well, I want something in Wall Street Journal, not realizing that that's a subscription-based publication and it's limiting who can see that. Where you go out there and you get local bloggers to believe in your product, or you get local shows such as this, where then you can take that and you can see it locally, share that link on your page, other people share it, and it goes viral that way. And so it does give a totally different dynamic as to how you work that message. Plus with social media, you can put your message out there instantly, as opposed to sending a press release, having to wait 3 or 4 days for that writer to pick it up, maybe do something, maybe not. And you have that instant gratification kind of delivery with that social media channel.
Mm-hmm. So to follow up on the part about, you send an email out, you hope it. Now we're emailing press releases. You used to fax them, and now we're sending it out. And
I used to actually mail them through the post office.
Yeah, and now people they build this database. They go to websites, find journalist names. They put 100 of them into a BCC. They put out press release, urgent, some information about their event or their promotion or something, and then they just cross their fingers and they hope, maybe it'll be in the newspaper tomorrow. Like that's a really terrible way.
They cast that big net.
But that's, I guess it's an option, send it out to 500 people and if one of them pick it up. But I think you talked about building those relationships are so much more valuable, I think, in terms of getting coverage. So walk us through what is fact, what's fiction these days with a press release in 2015.
Well, one of the biggest things is that not everything is press release worthy. And it's really hard as a PR person to go to the client and say, listen, I know you want to get this word out, but that is not a press release worthy story. Let's do a blog post about it, or let's pick it up and make it a Facebook or a Twitter post with a graphic. That's about all it needs at some point. And it's really hard because despite the fact that a lot of these businesses don't know how to do PR, they like to tell you how to do your job.
Of course.
And so, that's kind of a big thing. So you kind of have to stick your ground and say, listen, this is something, let's figure out a way to tell the story without a press release. Or if it's, an example, every single winery in Michigan that gets an award, we're getting a lot of awards now. So it's important to that winery, but to the media source, maybe not so much. Or doing a press release about an award that a business got from a magazine, well, they don't understand that another magazine's not going to write about that award. So these are opportunities to build your blog base and build other avenues internally. You maybe can create a press release, but post it on your own website. Use that as the source, as opposed to actually sending it out to the media. Because the more you send them all of that garbage, the less likely that they are to use the good stuff when it comes through.
Yeah, they're going to filter you right into the trash.
They're going to filter you out. They're going to unsubscribe. They're going to ask you to not send them anything. And so you have to be able to determine what makes sense. But there are still great opportunities to send press releases out. And sometimes I do that blanket approach with things. But what I do is send that out a day or two after I've made 5 personal calls to the media that I really want to know this news. And I call them or I send them a text personally and say, listen, I've got something that's got your name all over it. And I give them not necessarily an exclusive, but give them a jump start on that news and let them spin it the way that they want to first, and then continue to build that relationship with them.
Yeah, I think another good thing to bring up is, which I've talked about many times on the show, is the difference between content and context. And I think it's a big issue we run into. It's a great piece of content, but it doesn't fit into the context of a press release. It fits better into a blog post or a social media post or whatever it is. You got lots of great content. And I think one of the biggest parts of all my clients, and I'm guessing yours, is to get good quality content all the time. Consistent basis. It's just like, we got this one thing, it's the best thing ever. No.
No.
You think it's like the best thing ever. What your consumers and the media wants to think. And timing is also a big thing. If you're sending something to a monthly publication for a feature, learn the dates you need to send things out. And I'll let you, the next question is, what are the three things you would tell people watching at home right now or business owners? What are the three things to better ensure you're getting your stories picked up?
Well, there's countless tips out there. I mean, obviously having quality writing and knowing what you're putting out there that has that great, concise, but all the information that writer needs. You got to kind of think as an editor or as a writer. I think I have a benefit that my degree is in print and broadcast journalism. So I spent a bulk of my life in my early part of my career actually reporting. So I know when I send out a press release what those people need. And there are opportunities now because most traditional media sources are very short-staffed. So if you write a release that has what they need, has the data, has the quotes, has the background without all of the editorializing in it, there's chances that you can get that picked up because they can just drop it in.
Less work. Make it easy for the journalist.
Exactly. Make sure you've got photos available. I have always, in the last couple of years, started adding, and when I send a press release out, that release is already posted on my news blog with a link at the bottom of the release, so that if that media source can't use it in the print version, they can at least grab the link to what's already online and put that on their social media channels. So again, just spoon feeding them and making it super easy for them. And then know who you're sending things to. I mean, I have probably 2,000 contacts on my media list, but they're in different sectors. This sector might be about automotive stuff. This might be about boating. This is geared toward women, geared toward seniors. So I'm not going to send a press release from Hudsonville Ice Cream to the automotive writer. I'm not going to send a press release.
Don't just BCC everyone. Please, right now, take your email list.
Tailor it.
Just don't do it. Just don't do it.
Yeah, tailor it for who it belongs to. And, really kind of work to do that. And then, another thing now with all of the Google Analytics and the things that are going on when you're posting releases online is having more of those links in your press release. And I remember when we first started seeing that, and it kind of bothered me at first to see all of these lines of blue underlined words in your press release. But as I started looking at it, I'm like, you know what, this is great, because now as I'm reading this and this band is playing, I can click right on that and go to that band's website and not have to go Google it separately. So I realized, that helps, again, the media person have it spoon-fed to them and everything is right there for them. And I think that, that's something that they really appreciate. And again, building back onto that relationship aspect of it all, if they know you're providing quality content with everything that they need, they're gonna look to you as a source in the future.
Perfect. So with that, obviously we talked about all the things it takes to develop good quality content and now how to distribute it. So how do you make yourself as a PR professional worth your weight in gold, let's say? What is it when someone's like, I need help, not many people know about our business, or I'm opening up a restaurant, I don't know these people. What is it that makes you valuable to potential clients?
Well, I think that one of the biggest things, and you and I are in the same sector of a lot of the tourism and hospitality, is know your market, know what you're doing. When you and I were talking in preparation for this segment, we talked about, I don't know hospitals, and I don't know the banking world, and I don't know the real estate world, but I know travel and tourism, and I know beer, and I know agriculture. So I don't take clients on that don't fit into that area that I have that expertise. But what I do have is friends in the industry who do represent those areas. And so you've got that secondary network to say, you know what, banking isn't really my forte, but I know this person who does PR for banking.
For the finance.
And so I can send stuff to them, because then I know when they get somebody calling looking for hospitality, they're going to send that referral back. So I think that that's a huge element in terms of being a solid PR person. The other thing is, and this is one that is critical, I mean, you need to do what you say you're going to do. If you commit to it, you better deliver on it, and you better deliver on it above and beyond what that person expects. And so much of the world just doesn't realize, and one of my biggest pet peeves is when somebody tells me they're going to do something and they don't, or they do it 2 weeks later than they said they were going to. And in PR, you can't have that. You've got to be on the ball, ready to go 24/7. And if you can't commit to a life of being on call, then you're in trouble.
You got to get out of the industry.
Exactly.
I think now with social media, people who, I just read a research study, I'll try to find it and link it up for you in the blog post, but they said people are expecting a response from a social media request to a brand. If they send you a tweet, they expect a response within 15 minutes.
Wow.
It's out of control.
It is,
like,
absolutely.
This is no faxing a press release and hoping, no. This is like, people want feedback now.
You've got to pay attention to it. I have a prime example. I actually sent a Facebook message to HP this week because I had an issue. The last few ink cartridges, I buy the extended life cartridges, were not lasting. And so I sent a message. I said, is there something I can do to my machine? Is it just that my printer's getting old? But, I'm spending $30 on this cartridge and I'm getting 6 sheets out of it.
Like Skittles
and within 48 hours, I had a response back from them and they wanted to know what model I had and all this. So they're paying attention to those communications that are coming through. And in the PR world, you have to be out there watching who's posting on Yelp and TripAdvisor, thanking those people that are giving you good feedback, addressing the bad feedback and not deleting it.
Exactly. So that's something that I work with a lot of my clients now, is online reputation management, is how to best understand what's happening in in your digital world, how to take advantage of it, and how to deal with the good as well as the bad. Deleting
Absolutely. Well, the thing is that most people, when you send a complaint, they don't necessarily, there's certain people that want you to pay off on it, but I think they just want to be heard. They want to understand that you listen to what they had to say and just make it accountable. And I think that that's one of the big things on those reviews. So you do have to be paying attention to the things that are going on all the time. I'm fortunate that that's probably the biggest crisis management thing that I have to work with in my side of the PR. But things can snowball really quick, out of control. If somebody posts a bad review out there or posts a comment. If I send a bad tweet out, that's potentially 18,000 people that could see that, retweet it, repost it. And if I hashtag,
CNN gets a hold of it, and all of a sudden,
and I hashtag it the proper way,
Yeah.
It can go out there and be quite detrimental. And so if you're in PR, you've got to really kind of monitor the things that are going on in that. And then one final thing on the whole building of relationships with media is, as I mentioned, it's a 24/7 job. So you need to be available whenever those media need you. It's not just you asking them to do what you want, but you have to be there when they need you. And so one of the things that I've really worked with ShowSpan, for example, in Grand Rapids, is when I do the auto show, the boat show, the food and wine, I know I've got to be up at 3:30 and TV ready by 4:30 because that's when they're going on the air. But I also know that those people are doing that and giving me the attention that I need for my event. But they also call me because I'm readily available to say, hey, we've had a last minute cancellation. Can you come in an hour? Or we need somebody to fill this spot tomorrow. And if I can't do it, at least I can find them somebody else. So, you need to be able to answer these questions as a PR person or solve the problem or have somebody in your network who can deal with that. And I get kind of an adrenaline rush out of that whole part of it, that, oh my God, we need an interview in a half an hour on this topic. Can you find us someone? Go. And you kind of get pumped up and excited about who you can deliver. And then all of a sudden, 5 minutes before the interview, you score somebody. And you just go, that's what this industry is about. It's putting those connections together, connecting the dots, and making everybody happy at the end of the day.
So how do you deal with all these new and upcoming journalists? And there's a blog, and I run this blog, and I have 3,000 people who go here, and they're all calling, and they want to interview, they want this. And how do you help dictate the value of a media opportunity of a little rink-a-dink blog compared to someone like if CNN calls you, which would be obviously wonderful. But I've worked in promoting events and run marketing promotion events. Now, everyone is like, oh, we want a free media pass, a free ticket. Yeah, we're going to come and we're going to write a write-up at the end. And we got how do you weed through those people? And what are your recommendations for people out there who are running organizations who are constantly getting these emails of, hey, we'd love to cover this in exchange for this? It's not becoming journalism. It's becoming like a paid, an advertorial, not an editorial.
Right. It's kind of hard because a lot of the big major media outlets aren't allowed to take freebies. They're not allowed to take a free ticket or a free hotel room or a free meal. So it did become a challenge. And I remember when the bloggers really started to kind of amp up their presence about 5 years ago, I guess. And working obviously with the brewing industry, there's a lot of people that want free tickets to a beer festival. And so we had to develop some guidelines. And so we put a list together, and we We have a form that they have to fill out. They need a minimum number of, they have to have at least 500, which I think is low, Facebook followers and Twitter followers. I go and look at their blog. They've had to have talked about Michigan craft beer for at least a year, have had so many posts. They have had to have at least so many posts per month. And I go through and review it. I Google names.
So giving them an audit and making sure that what they actually say is going to help you provide that $80 worth of tickets that you're giving them.
Exactly. I mean, the biggest thing you do is Google them. And a lot of times I don't even have to go do that anymore on the form. It tells them, they have to give me those links.
Perfect.
So it's spoon-fed to me. So they have to sell me on the fact that they should be there. I don't necessarily always need them there. But if key people that I know that are constantly writing about us, not just at festival time, but they're calling me for other things throughout the year and saying, what can I do for you? Who should I be talking about? Who's the hot new brewery or the new story? Then again, it's that relationship part. And there are a handful of bloggers out there that I would consider to be among my top media contacts now. Because I know, is it great to get in CNN? Yeah, you got 200 words once. But maybe I want to foster that relationship with that blogger locally who has 18,000 followers and is writing about me every week.
Yeah, it just depends on the type of message you're trying to get out there and who's consuming the message. Yeah, CNN, bajillion people watch it.
Yeah.
But are
Does
those
it deliver anything?
Are those people actually going to make an action on whatever was reported? Is that going to benefit your business in any way?
Prime example was just recently, the Today Show talked about Petoskey being a prime destination. That's great, and I love that Kathy Lee and Hoda talked about Petoskey, but it turned into heads and beds, and you and I know that term. Did it cultivate into sales?
Exactly.
Is it great? Yes. Did everybody share it on social media? Yes. Was it really cool to see Petoskey's name on the Today Show? Yes. But how many people actually came to Petoskey because of that story? And that's where you have to balance it all out.
For sure. So in terms of that balancing your marketing promotions, your marketing and public relations, what part or what kind of recommendations in terms of part of developing, everyone's right now deep in their 2016 budgeting plans.
Right.
What part could PR play into your overall marketing strategy?
Well, you have to look at and map it all out just like you would any other marketing strategy. And so when you're talking with PR stories and editorial, you have to be thinking a year out. More than a year out, actually. You need to know.
All these magazines, they're releasing their publication, their features for next year.
So the thing is like if we want to sell a concept of Traverse City as a summer destination, we needed to take photos back in July. The pitches needed to go out then. And the reporters to those national magazines would be invited to come this year for a story for next year. And I think it's hard for some businesses to realize that you're investing those dollars now for something that you're not going to see for a year. Once you get in the cycle, though, it kind of keeps reverbing out. So
how do you get people into that? Because everyone is results now. I post something on Facebook, people like to come now. How do you move them into the bigger picture mentality, especially when people are potentially on smaller budgets?
Right.
How do you invest something that you might not see return on for a whole year? Some people don't have that, but they need it.
Right. Well, so you got to map out your calendar. So you've got your marketing plan, you've got your editorial calendar. What topics do we want to talk about now? The thing that I love about working with the bloggers is when they come in for a media tour, they're tweeting and Instagramming now, and then
they're going to talk about it again in another 6 months.
So you get a double whammy on that investment of that time for that person.
Because those bloggers, they're building their personal brands as well.
Exactly.
I was the guy who was here doing, I think the bloggers became one person can be as powerful as big corporations as long as they're giving good content and value to their followers.
Well, and I think a lot of times, too, that has a little bit even more credibility because the consumer looks at a blogger as a general person, as just their neighbor or their friend. They're not the big media giant. So I think a lot of times people trust what a blogger says.
Credibility comes in a bit more.
Over,
Fox News.
Yeah, and especially when you got so much advertising that's pay to play, where you're only going to get an editorial feature if you've bought so many ads before.
People are sniffing that out.
And the advertorial that you talked about earlier, you're starting to see people kind of try to trick the consumer into thinking this is an editorial or this is an editorial piece, but it's really an advertorial piece.
Yeah,
so
exactly. So what's the next big change you think in the PR industry that's happening?
So I think that there are some different platforms that are coming out. Two that I'm playing with right now, and I know we talked about you don't have to do everything, and I only allow myself to learn one new platform every 6 months because I want to learn it good. So I've just started using Periscope, and there's also Meerkat, which is another live video feed. I am not the best videographer, but I'm having fun with it. So my favorite one is I rubber banded my phone to the rearview mirror when I drove over the Mackinac Bridge and did a voiceover about the Straits and what I saw and what the history was. And that got a lot of views. And I did one, came back to Mackinac Island recently, and the power was out at 10 o'clock at night. And most people don't get a chance to see that live feed. And so for those instant things like that, Periscope is really kind of starting to take off, and I think has some really great potential. I'm really not sure exactly what the strategies are yet to best utilize it, but it's one I'm really looking at. And then another
marketers are going to ruin it eventually.
Yeah, somehow you're going to have to pay for it, or some crazy thing. SlideShare is another one that I'm looking at. This is basically taking a PowerPoint presentation and uploading it. And then you can share that out there, and it gets follows. And I've been doing 15 things, ... So it's 15 things about Mackinac Island fudge, 15 things about that you want to do with your dad for Father's Day, 15 things about peaches, just fun little tidbits. And a lot of it, what's great about that is those are content stories that I've written about before, and all I did is put it into a different platform.
So here you go, pro tip. 10 lists, 5, 6, whatever.
How do you think Thrillist is so good?
List it out, because people, the reason it's popular is people have an understanding of their time investment before they've even done anything. 10 things about Father's Day. Okay, there's 10 things, that might take me 30 seconds to read through. Instead of a blog post title that says, the latest and greatest in Father's Day gifts. People are having an understanding of their investment before their bullet points, pictures, very easy to click through.
I mean, it's a PowerPoint, so you just go through it super quick. And another thing, as I said, if you can reuse content you already have in different ways. So maybe next year I take that Father's Day thing and all of a sudden I turn it into a short little 90-second video. If you've invested time and money to write about a topic, there are multiple ways you can tell that story. Content
versus context. We talked about it before. Develop great content and then just segment it for each piece of where it's being distributed, because that's how people receive information. You wouldn't send the same article out on Twitter than you would in a full blog post.
Right.
Or in a video on YouTube. They have their different purpose and how people want to receive the information. People who distribute content the best understand how to speak to each market.
Exactly. And then one final thing that I think is kind of happening as an upturn or a change in the industry, or one that I personally would like to see happen, is to get away from that keypad a little bit. Let's do handwritten notes. I just did a blog post about this. Every time somebody sends me a card, it's like Christmas morning. Open an envelope.
Snail mail, it's amazing.
And you know what? If you really want to get a great marketing message out, send the press release the old school way and see, not to everybody, but your 5 or 6 top people. Or, I want to see phone calls come back, and I am guilty of this. I don't answer, and you know this, I don't always answer that phone. Unless I know I have time to dedicate to that phone call, I won't answer it. I'm quick to text. But I want to make a change in my patterns of behavior and get back a little bit more to actually having dialogue. Whether that's on the phone, whether that's written, but away from the keyboard, away from the text messaging. Let's sit down and have coffee and write out our notes and brainstorm. And I want to see some of those original strategies come back.
Well, they're going to come back. Everything's kind of cyclical. So, the things that used to be done, now everything used to be slow. Now it's so quick. People go back and actually take the time.
Right.
Like they used to. People appreciate that. The handwritten letters, a little thank you note after just maybe a little coffee meeting. Send a thank you note.
Exactly.
A friend of mine just did that. They came up and stayed for the weekend, and they just sent us a little thank you card for staying at our house. I've known them for 15 years. You don't need to send me a thank you card, but
exactly.
It's the little things are super appreciated.
And it reinforces that relationship that you have with that person. I sent a note recently to a distributor in Grand Rapids who kind of saved the day with a beer event that we had going on. And I knew he was going to do it because they're good at customer service. And I just sent him a little note. I said, you know what, thank you for, you had 2 hours to deliver what we needed to be done. Just thanks for doing that. I really appreciate you looking out for us. And then he sent me a Facebook message and said, I got your card today, and it really meant a lot. Which made me feel good.
Exactly.
At the end.
People love to know that they feel appreciated, and everything is so much about business, and make the consumer happy, make the consumer happy. If you're the consumer and you actually let people know they feel appreciated, a lot of people don't get the thank yous.
Exactly.
Or the, hey, good job, everyone's so business. if you take the extra second to do that,
Exactly.
super appreciated. Don't miss a single episode of the Stocki Exchange Show. Visit the Stocki Exchange Facebook page, like our page, hover over the like button, and click Get Notifications and See First to never miss out on a show or post. So now's the time of the show where we're going to move on to the one word answers. So as being a liquid beverage enjoyer,
wow, that's a nice title. I'm going to keep that one.
Liquid, put it on your business card.
Yeah.
If I were to give you a case of 1961 Chateau Margaux, which if you don't know wine is an extremely expensive rare
at least $700 per bottle, upwards to $2,000.
So if you were to have a case of it, would you sell, share, save it, or drink it?
Yes.
So she'd do all of them.
Exactly.
Perfect.
And my next question to you is, where is it?
Yeah, well, one day.
All right.
One day. I'll work with the local microbrewers until I can afford $700 bottles of wine.
Well, maybe we can all go in and chip in on one bottle somewhere, and we can all sample that.
I think it's going to be a big letdown. I love wine. I've had an expensive bottle of wine before. I don't think I'd ever spend $700 on one bottle of wine. I don't think it'd be that good.
Because that's like $150 a glass.
Nope. All right, so now second part of the show is the Stocki Exchange, just where you get to ask me some questions, and hopefully I can come up with some pearls of wisdom for the latest and greatest in marketing or PR.
So my question to you is, obviously, you and I work in a lot of the same sectors, but we're of different generations. So, I went through with snail mail and faxing and the introduction to email and now social media. I want to know kind of from you what you see are some of the strategies from the past, as we talked about a minute ago, that we can bring back together that will benefit us as individual PR people, but also as a collective unit.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because when I graduated college back in 2007, I moved overseas for 6 years and worked in Australia for a year. Then I worked in the Middle East for 3 years. Then I worked in China for a year as a marketing director for hotels. And then I just finally moved back to the U.S. a few years ago and started the Stocki Exchange. When I left college in 2007, technology, it's before the crisis, the kind of big recession hit. I was in Australia, everything was good. Then I moved to the Middle East. And moving there, it takes the technology and you just turned everything back 15 years. So I felt like when I went back, I was in the Middle East in 2009, I started our very first Facebook page. I wrote the copy for the second version of the hotel's website ever. We started a Twitter account. So I had already been with those tools since their inception in the US, but then I turned around and went back through the whole education process on a marketing perspective of how to use these tools from a marketing perspective, because they first started as user platforms and then marketers were like, all right, let's wreck this. So we figured out a way to use it to make money for our businesses. The Middle East, PR-wise, all about relationships.
Exactly. I have been there. I know.
All it doesn't matter who you send a press release to, unless you call that person or know that person, you're SOL. So that I think is going to always be there. That relationship building, and the one of your biggest pet peeves is people not following through. I think if you can be that person who follows through, does exactly what they are going to do when they're going to. It's amazing how many people don't do that. Professionals, people who are I've sent many emails to contact forms on websites and stuff, and I've never even heard back from. I am a qualified lead who literally came through the funnel designed for you to generate revenue, and you've never responded back to me. But I think that personal relationship and your brand as a PR professional, your personal brand is so important. And it's not hard to do the right thing. If you say you're going to do something, just do it. If you can't, do everything you possibly can do to let that person know the reasons why.
Yeah, give them a heads up.
Give them a head. I mean, you don't want to be the person who's just excuses all day, but if it's a one-off thing and you have a valid excuse, okay. If it happens 3, 4, 7 times, no one's going to trust you anymore.
Figure out how to solve the problem and correct it for the future.
So And then moving to China, same thing. Massive language barrier, but it's all about who you know. Wine and dine, wine and dine, wine and dine. That's it. I don't think I've ever drank as much as I have when living in China trying to make business relationships.
Are you an expert in sake now?
No. No. Baiju is terrible, terrible stuff. So the more you drink, the cooler you are there. And all your staff wants to drink with you. You're the only foreigners. They're like, yeah, let's drink. So they all take one shot, but there's 30 staff and they all want to drink with you. So you're getting a little saucy at the end. But then moving back to here, moving back to Northern Michigan where we're at right now, I think at a local level, the personal relationships are massive. And it's actually a really small PR market up here. There's only a couple media journalists. There's only a couple outlets. And then, reach out to the people. Ask them before you all right, well, we want someone from the Lansing Journal to pick this up. Maybe before then you should have already contacted the Lansing Journal. Who's the person who's in charge of features for lifestyle, if that's where you're working in? Call the person. Hey, we're from here. Do you have any upcoming stories? Do you have any available openings in your editorial calendar? Offer value. The more you give, the more you're going to get back. Don't be the people or the business who's just sending information out willy-nilly and hoping I hope everyone finds this valuable. Take the extra 10 minutes and call someone and say, hey, what are you doing? Make a note of it. Put it on a calendar. That's why developing a marketing strategy and an editorial calendar is so important. So you're not always just being reactive. You're being proactive. If you contact a journalist 4 months ahead of time and say, hey, the summer season coming up, we have this thing that's going to be really awesome. What do you think about X, Y, Z? Pitch the idea. That's
exactly.
People find oh my God, someone actually came to me. You're making their life easier. That's it.
Well, and the thing is too, if you go out and try to find out who that writer is, read their stuff up ahead of time. Send them notes and go, hey, I really liked that article about this. And, build that relationship and then say, you know what, I work in the industry, I work in PR, this is what I cover. If there's anything that you need that fits into that, first of all, you've started and you know their work. You've read it, you've given them compliments, you're building that relationship.
Yeah, follow them on social media, retweet their posts, share it on something else, leave a comment on their blog, show that you care, give give value. Don't just stand there and expect everything good in the world to come to you.
There was a prime example, probably 10 years ago now, a food and wine writer named Bruce Schoenfeld. He lives in Colorado and wrote an article, I think for USA Today, talking about Virginia being this up-and-coming wine region. And he went in all this detail about how great it was. And I sent him an email back before Twitter and Facebook and said, hey, Bruce, I really enjoyed your article. It was really enlightening. Next time I go down to visit friends in that area, I'm going to go check it out. By the way, did you know that Traverse City is located along the 45th parallel, and gave the whole spiel about the number of wineries.
Hit him with the elevator pitch.
And all of that. And about 2 hours later, I got an email back, and he said, I never knew Michigan made wine. He goes, I don't have any place for the story right now, but I'll keep you posted. 2 years later, he sent me an email. He goes, do you guys have anybody that makes a Pinot Blanc? I said, yes. He goes, send me whatever you want. We sent it to him. It was the Left Foot Charlie Pinot Blanc that got him here. He called me when he was leaving New England on his way back to Colorado. He goes, I have 18 hours. Picked him up at the Traverse City Airport, took him to dinner, took him to 2 wineries, and we got featured the next year. I mean, it took 4 years for that to happen. But it was all because of one simple, that was a great article.
And sometimes that's all it takes.
And now he calls, and once a year I get an email from him. Hey, I'm looking for this. Do you have anybody that makes that? And so now he knows that I'm his contact here.
Playing the long game.
Yep, and it's great because that's probably one of my top 5 greatest success stories in my career was to have that all from just a simple little conversation.
Well, thank you. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your insights. I hope all of you watching at home found it valuable. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the blog posts. So right now we're going to talk about the giveaway. Right. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your friend Tony and mentor Tony. So we're going to be giving away some of his books, I think a t-shirt and some audio books where he's going to send us over a lovely little thing. But it's one of Dianna's mentors. So tell us a little bit about him and what we can expect.
So yeah, Tony's going to send a care package. I'm not sure what's going to all be in there, but I guarantee there
So
will
don't hold me to the T-shirt, okay?
It's going to be a handwritten note in there. I guarantee it.
Okay. See, throw the T-shirt away, frame the note.
So Tony and I have probably known each other for about 15 years now. I was working at West Michigan Tourist. He was one of our vendor members at the time. And we just kind of hit it off in terms of being PR and marketing people. And what I love is when you've got people in our industry, you learn from each other. And I go and listen to Tony. I've probably heard his spiel 20 times. But every time I pick up some little nugget that's new. And it's always great to see what he has to say, what new things he has. And for you and I who do PR all the time, it's kind of like a duh kind of thing, but they're great, simple strategies in all of his books, and his theme is called mind capture, and it's basically capturing the mind. I mean, we're hit with 4 to 5,000 messages a day, and how do you stand out in that age?
How do you get one to stick?
Exactly. So he goes through in his series of books. He's had a New York Times bestseller. He's got audio books, and I follow him on all of his social media. And he's constantly putting out these little mind nuggets of just little things and inspiring quotes from leaders in the industry. And so when I was coming in,
let the light bulb.
Yeah,
go
exactly.
on.
And everything that he's, in some of his earlier pieces here, he's got the brain. One of his little gimmicks at his earlier workshops was this like stress reliever brain. So he would toss them out to you. I couldn't find mine today. I think my kids probably stole it. But Tony is just a great mentor. He's a trailblazer, which is kind of the theme of his new book that just came out earlier this year. And he's from Spring Lake, Michigan. He's a Western Bronco, just like I am. Say hey, hey, hey. And so we just really have a good time feeding off of each other's energy and sharing and brainstorming ideas. And so every time I'm struggling with something, like when I launched my business 11 years ago, I called Tony and I said, you know what, this is what I want to do. Do you think it's a good idea? How do I do it? What do I need to do? And he was one of my big ambassadors, as is Rick Coates here in Traverse City. These guys that I looked up to, that I said, when I grow up, I want to be these people, even though I'm older than Tony, so that really doesn't work so well. But
hey, he's trailblazing, he's leading it.
He is. So we're gonna have a care package coming from Tony. With some of his books, audiobooks, and who knows what else he might throw in the mix. But
cool.
Great reading and super simple reading as well.
All right, well, keep your eyes out for that. So right now, you're all on your phone. I'm sure everyone has a phone. Go right now. StockiExchange.com/blog. Check out the blog post for this episode. Enter in your name, shoot your email address, and we're going to shoot over a winner. And you guys will be able to take home all the latest tips and tricks from Tony and the latest and greatest on how to make your PR work a little better for you and how to make it stick. So thank you guys so much for watching. Dianna, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciate it. And we will see you guys on the next episode of the Stocki Exchange. Thanks for watching.